Right. You mentioned organically, and something that's coming to my mind is when and we'll talk about this transition to more and more underground, but are they still having to so are they keeping the above ground and piecing it? I'm not an electrician or an engineer, and everybody will figure that out really
And it,
quick with this question. But I'm wondering, are they still piecemealing it together organically, or is there a bigger focus on, okay, this is going to keep happening. We need to now put together a plan. I'm sure it varies by city to
yes,
city. And
it's an excellent question, and it's a little bit of both, right? Because your plan's only as good as what you know, right? So they do have plans put together. There is organic growth that happens because there's always a percentage of things that kind of set out a certain way, and they're structured that way. We'll say in the urban areas, not urban, in the rural areas, you kind of send out your lines and this, and suburbs come up and they get requests to have it set up. And when they're asking for permits, it's not just the permits to be able to build and zoning on the land, it's permits so that the utilities are able to start planning and get the requests for what they need for new buildings, new homes, new structures, new industries, and so on and so forth, so that they could upgrade their capacities, as you can imagine. But there's always basically, even though the utility is not going to turn down new business, at the end of the day, they're basically trying. They're in the business of selling us electricity, so they're going to try to supply it as best as they can, right? So if we're sitting there and we have a project that requires more installations, more houses, more commercial buildings, and we could plan ahead, it starts to make things a little more structured because they're not wanting to have a repeat of what's happened in the past where things would just kind of show up and then you're trying to put on a bunch of power poles and a bunch of power lines left and right. I think there's a lot more planning going into it now because they don't want to have to relive that. And the thing is, the investment of going underground to keep it visually nicer is a little higher. It costs quite a bit more money to go put something underground, and you have to plan for it. And the thing is, when you're going underground, there's other things underground along with your electricity. You've got sewers, you've got the akadzik, so the water inlets are coming in too. You've got other service factors that are to be considered. Foundations, there's all kinds of river structures we got to keep in mind, and especially in older cities, there's all kinds of stuff under there that you don't even know is in existence. So you have to have quite a bit of
Yeah.
planning tied into your organic growth.
Yeah, absolutely. As Don mentioned, planning makes it easier. If you have a new subdivision, for example, new construction, you can plan to put those cables underground, which definitely help mitigate issues when it comes to, of course, forest fires, floods, car accidents, taking out hydro poles, things like that. As well, don't forget that it is a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, right? So if you have a new subdivision, you don't have overhanging lines, so
mm,
children flying kites in parks and so on don't have to worry about hitting overhead lines, right? But you do have a challenge when the infrastructure is already there. If you could picture, for example, a downtown core of Toronto or Montreal or any
mm,
major city, real estate is at a premium. And to move those lines from overhead to underground is not as easy because I don't think it was planned at the time that those were built. So those pose some challenges. However, some major cities are absolutely considering it. Some are acting. Some are converting some of their overhead lines to underground, even though it is costly, especially in the coasts where they could face heavy windstorms and fires and so on. It does pay off, I think, to convert. So that is happening.
is that
But
and how just kind of zeroing in on that then, Jay, if they're doing that, is that, again, not being an electrician or an engineer, I would assume that you could do it sort of block by block. Like I saw that when they put in all those Ethernet systems, they were doing it sort of street by street. Can you do that the same way, or is electricity a bit of a different plan to, I mean,
no,
I've been to cities around the world where it's
yes,
all
yes.
above ground and it's just wild. I mean, you just it's quite the
Yeah,
thing.
no, that's a good question. They can do it in phases. I don't think they do it all one shot. It's almost impossible to do it all one shot. So it is done in phases. The network is well monitored, I think, now, and the utilities are well aware of where they can cut power, divert power from different sections, and do sections at a time. So that is what they will do. And that there's a lot of planning, a lot of effort involved in that. You simply can't just take overhead lines, start digging and putting underground lines. You have to get approvals from the municipalities. You have to work with them. You have to do environmental assessments. So they do face a lot of challenges while doing it, but nonetheless, it is being done.